This is part 10 of a series on building a full-stack web application using Spring Boot and React, where you get to watch every line of code being written and a full app built from the scratch, step by step. If you're new, start watching from this video. Okay, so we have a couple of pages, the team page and the match page, and we have the core UI elements there. I'm comfortable at this point to focus on styling. I want to style the UI and make it look a little bit like what the final product will be, at least in my mind. And the reason why I do that is I like to work iteratively like this. I'm not a fan of just doing one thing completely end to end and then switching to something else. Making this kind of iterative flow helps in terms of, discovering things as you go, right? I might style and I might find out things which I realize, oh, I need to add this UI element there or something else, and that results in changes to some other layer, for example. So I quite like this iterative model, but I understand that it's not for everyone. At this point, I am going to be focusing on styling this page, the team page, first of all. I'm going to be adding CSS styles for it, making it look good. All right, so I have stopped everything here and I'm going to start my application, both the front end and the back end. And in case you're wondering how to do that, well, this is how you do it. First, the Spring Boot app, you can either go to the Java app and run it, or you can use any of the Spring Boot dashboard controls in your IDE, click play, and it is going to run the Spring Boot application. And the React app is by going to the React directory, which is src/frontend, and then here you do npm start or yarn start, and it is going to start your React application. And in the case of React, not only is it going to start the server, it's also going to open the browser. And you should see, if you go to the navigate to the URL, which is /teams/team name, you should be able to see the team and the team name and the latest matches, which are the things that we have added. So how do you approach styling something like this? You usually work off of a design spec, right? You have a UI designer who gives you like this UI of how this is going to look like, and you work off of that. But in my case, I'm the UI designer. I'm going to kind of get a feel for how the design goes as I build it. I have a rough outline of how this is going to look like, right? We talked about this before. There's going to be the team name over here, right? We're going to do that here. And then there's going to be like this wins losses percentage pie chart. We haven't added that. We're going to add that as we do this. And then there's going to be this one tile below this, which is going to span the whole width. And then you have these smaller tiles, which are going to be one next to the other, right? So these three are basically going to be three tiles, one next to the other, left, middle, and right. And then maybe a more link over here where they can view all the matches, right? That's the goal. So how do I start? I typically start by doing some kind of a reset. All these browsers have their own, built-in CSS, okay? So they have some specifications about how certain UI elements need to look like, okay? So H1 needs to be this much size, and it needs to have this padding and margin at the bottom. It has all these predefined styles, and those styles sometimes mess with what we're trying to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a reset. So before I do a reset, let me position my screen so that, again, we can see both my browser and the window that I'm working on in VS Code. And then we are going to iteratively apply these styles as we work on it. I'm going to close everything here. And then let's look at the styling that we have. So in React, there are two styles that the Create React app spits out. Okay, so the first is index.css, which is kind of like the global styling that applies to everything, right? And this is something that React has kind of added as default. And then you have component level styling, right? So you have app.js and app.css, right? And then you can have .css for all of these individual components as well. And in your component.js, you import the CSS that you're looking for, okay? Which is this guy. So I can create multiple CSS files and can add them for each of my components, okay? So here in this case, app.css corresponds to the app.js component. And since I have class name as app over here, which is basically the component name, in my app.css, I can prefix with .app. So I know that whatever styling I'm applying here is going to apply only for a class name called app. And as long as I don't use that class name for any other components, then I know for sure that this CSS is going to be applied only to this JS. There are other ways in which you can style your React components. And one common way I've seen is by adding CSS in your JS. Okay. It's a little bit of an odd thing if you're not familiar with it. So I'm not going to do that now. I'm just going to add a separate CSS file and then import it to my component. So each component is going to have a corresponding CSS file that I'm going to import. Now that I think about it, I'm probably going to want to try Sas and not CSS. The reason I want to do Sas is because in my CSS, so for example, let's take app.css, right? So over here, I can put all the styling inside this block here, right? So let's say inside here, I want to add another element, like I can say .class and then foo, and then I can add this over here. And this is going to work if it's a Sas file. It's not going to work if it's a CSS file, all right? If it's a CSS, I'm going to have to get this out here, and then I'm going to have to do a .app and then .foo. So it knows to apply the style to the .foo inside the .app, okay? So it becomes a little bit cumbersome. So let me add Sas Support. How do I add Sas Support to my React app? That's actually very simple. What you need to do is, let me kill this React application running here. What you need to do is basically add, let me move this so you can see the whole thing. What you need to do is add a dependency, npm install, or yarn add. No matter how you do it, it's basically adding a dependency, and the dependency is to node Sas. Okay, you do node dash Sas, node dash Sas. All right, node Sas is a library which allows you to write Sas, and then there's like a node runtime which allows you to kind of pre-compile the Sas files into CSS files. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm going to add this as a developer dependency, because this is not going to be deployed when the application is deployed, right? This is not required for the app to run. This is just required for development time functionality, right? When I'm writing code, I want this Sas to be compiled into CSS. Or when I'm building it, I want it to be compiled into CSS. But once it's compiled into CSS, I don't need this anymore. That's why it's a dev dependency. And I do that by doing a -d for yarn add, all right? So once I do this, I will have node Sas installed and made available to this application. And now I can, once this is installed, I can actually create Sas files. So for example, I can rename this to SCSS, okay? And in my app.js, I can import SCSS, and it is going to work just fine, okay? So it's like I have support for Sas. I can write Sas code over here, and it's going to compile to CSS, and it'll work just like you would expect. I can refresh this, and you see everything is still working fine. Okay, now, as I said, we are going to start by doing some resets, and I'm going to start the reset with the main index.css, right? Index.css is kind of like the global CSS which everything shares. So what I'm going to do here is, first, I'm going to apply some global styling to everything by using the star selector, right? Star applies to everything, right? So for all the elements, I'm going to do box sizing to be border box, and then padding is 0 and margin is 0, which is basically taking away all of the default padding and sizing that that browsers have. This sizing could be different for different browsers, right? The gap between Royal Challengers Bangalore here and latest matches, you see this? I didn't put this gap here. This was just the border, sorry, I don't know why I keep saying border, the margin between these two elements, which the browser thinks is the right thing to do, right? We don't want that because we want to enforce what it is and make it consistent across different browsers, which is why I'm setting the padding and margin to 0. Now notice what happens when I save this. See, all that padding and margin goes away, okay? This looks worse now, yes, but this is good because now this is going to look the same for all browsers, and now I can adjust the padding and margin for all these guys, okay? All right, next, I'm going to remove the underline for links. Okay, this is a bit of a controversial topic. You don't want to remove underlines from links because the underlines serve a purpose. There is an accessibility benefit to having that underline under a link because, first of all, just having that underline tells you that it's a link, right? It tells you that it is clickable. But some people don't like it. For this particular application, since it's a bit of like a hobby application right now, I am going to remove the underline, but you need to be careful about removing it in all applications, right? You don't want to do that every time. It's not a default choice. I'm just going to do it because it's more of like a stylistic thing here, and I can afford to do that in this particular case. So I'm going to say text decoration, and I'm going to make it none, which is basically going to remove the underline under the links. You see here, now the underline goes away. It's still a link, you can still click on it, but it just removes the underline. All right, okay, so I'm gonna remove margin over here, and I'm gonna change the font family. I wanna have a slightly different font for displaying this. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go to fonts.google.com, which contains a bunch of fonts that I can use. Let's see, Open Sans looks good. This is, we're getting to a point where I can end up spending hours and hours making this look good if I don't consciously pay attention to the time. All right, this one looks good. I'm just going to go with this. Okay, so I'm going to click this, and then let's see, there must be a way to specify this. All right, so I'm going to pick regular, and I'm going to pick bold, or maybe semi-bold, which is this guy here. All right, so I've picked these two font styles, and then I'm going to choose the import way of importing the styles. So all I need to do is add this snippet of CSS into my index.css. I'm going to do that at the very top. I'm importing this whole font, okay, which is basically importing that CSS from this URL. Okay, so I'm going to have that font available to me. And now that I have the font available to me, I can basically set that as the font family so that all of my fonts look like this. All right, I'm going to show you the difference once I save this. All right, so this is, I think, the Arial font, which is the default sans serif font. All right, so I've put this here. Now notice when I save this, you see that the font has changed. I quite like this font, so I'm going to retain that. Okay, and now I don't have any code displayed in my application, so I'm going to remove that. And now we have kind of like the basic styling available in index.css. Again, nothing specific to this application over here. I think if you have something like that's global and reusable, then you can put that over here. I might come back to this file later, but for now, we are going to be styling individual components, starting with the app component, okay? So let's go to the app.sess. This is our app styling that we have. We really have very little styling, just a padding and then align the text, which is good. That's how we want it. Now I'm going to make a little bit of a change to this thing. Let's see. I have, I don't know. This seems to be fine for now. I'm actually going to switch to the component itself, the page component. Yeah, I'll just leave this as is and switch to my team page, right? This is the team page, right? We have to style this thing. Now, how do I style this? I'm going to go to teampage.js, and I'm going to add a CSS file here, okay? It's going to be teampage.scss, and then I'm going to import that into my component. Okay, again, the conventions I'm using is, first, I'm using the same name for the CSS as the component name. And then I have the class name, same as the component name. And in my SCSS, I'm going to do this theme page as the kind of like the first selector. Okay, everything that goes over here is going to go inside this. So I know that whatever styling I'm applying here is going to apply only for this div and nothing else. Okay. All right. Now, what should the styling be? First of all, I want to make this like a CSS grid, okay? It makes it very easy to style if you have a CSS grid. So I'm going to have a grid, and then let's identify what the individual elements are, like how many rows and how many columns, okay? So what do we want in our styling? We want like the team name here, okay? And then we have the win versus losses thing over there. And then we have one full component for the match detail card. Okay, there's going to be the full width of the page. And then below this, I'm going to have 3 components, right? We got one, and then we got this one, and then we have one more over here. All right, so these are the 3 small cards, match small cards, right? This is one component. And then I'm gonna have like this more link over here, right? So it's gonna say something like this, more or something like that, okay? So this is gonna be our page. Okay, this is the team detail page. This is what this needs to look like. And I can easily achieve this with a CSS grid by defining the number of rows and columns, okay? How many rows does this page have? Well, it has 1 row, which is the team name and the wins versus losses. We have 1 more row for the match detail card, right? The match detail card itself can have multiple rows within it, but that doesn't matter. We just have 1 row for holding that card, that top level div. And then we have 1 row for this thing, right? 3 small cards and 1 more link, okay? So there are totally 3 rows. How many columns? Well, the columns are decided by this row here. So this row has 4 columns, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. This row has only 1 column, and this row has 2 columns. So the maximum number of columns we need is 4. So we're going to have 3 rows and then 4 columns. That's our grid. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to set the team page as a grid. Okay, this div is going to be a grid. And I do that by doing display as a grid. Okay, and then I'm going to set the columns and rows. Okay, the number of columns is 4. So I'm going to do grid template columns, and I'm going to make this 4. So it's basically 4 fractions, right? 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. Okay, this is basically saying split it into 4 equal parts. So it's 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. Okay, and now the columns is going to be, so sorry, the rows is going to be 3. All right, grid template rows is going to be 3 rows. Okay, now notice what happens when I do this. It's basically going to take all the divs that we have and it's going to put it into those templates, right? Those cells. Okay, so basically what I have here is a 3 row 4 column table. Okay, grid, and it's basically created that grid, right? It's like, see, 4 columns, and it's just gone into the second row. If I add more divs, it's going to go to the finish this, and then it's going to go to the third row and then put those over here as well. So it's basically taking every div and putting it into one, essentially a cell in this thing. Okay. One other thing I like to do with the grid is basically put some row gap and column gap. I like that, spread out a little bit. So I'm going to do a grid column gap is going to be 10 pixels, and then grid row gap is also going to be 10 pixels. It is going to add a little bit of a gap in the individual elements. You can almost think of it as a table, and then the gap is going to be the gap between those tables. You see here, it kind of squeezes it a little bit and makes some gap available. Okay, this is not what we want though. This looks a little off. So what I'm going to do is define some divs so that I can actually position them well. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. You see this H1 is being taken as one element and it's going over here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put each of these individual elements that need to go into these different positions in our grid in a separate div. Okay, team name is going to go into a div. I'm going to put one div for the wins and losses. I'm going to put one div for this column, one div for this, one for this, one for this, and one for this. Okay, so each entry that needs to go into one cell in the grid is going to be inside a div. That's going to make it easy for us to style. All right, so I'm going to go over here, and H1 is going to be in its own div. I'm going to expand this a bit. H1 is going to be in its own div. Okay, match detail, card is going to be in its own div. But before that, let me add the wins versus losses thing, okay? Because we need that. All right, then I'm going to make this wins, losses. All right, this is where I'm going to show the total wins and total losses. I don't have anything right now, but we're going to put something there. That's going to be in its own div. And I'm going to create one div here for the match detail card. And maybe one div for each of these ones, or maybe this should be enough. Now I'm going to save. And there is a little bit of a change here, but there shouldn't be a significant change. Well, the only change is this. Now there is an extra div that gets added over here. And again, each div goes into one of these slots that we've created in the grid, right? We have created a, was this 3x4 grid, right? Or is it, yeah, 3x4, right? So 3 rows and 4 columns. So that's basically what it is. And each div is going into one of these slots. Now, what I'm going to do is change the span of these things, right? So what do we want? We want this particular div to take up, what, around 3 of these? Let's make it 3, all right? So each one is one cell, right? So this one's defining what each column should be. And this is going to be 1 column each. I want this row to be like, maybe this is 3 units. And this is 1 unit, all right? So I want team name, the whole team name thing to be 3/4 of the width. And then this one needs to be 1/4, all right? That's what I want to do over here. Royal Challengers Bangalore. The team name is going to be 3/4 of the width. So it needs to go from here to here. And then wins and losses will be the 1/4 in the first row, okay? I can do that by styling each individual element, okay? So I'm going to go over here to teampage.js. And this particular one, I'm going to give all these ones class names, okay? So the first div is going to be the team name div, okay? So I'm going to call this class name equals team name. Call this section, okay? And then this one's going to be class name equals, let's call this win loss section. Okay, kind of identifies what these divs are. So just by giving the name is not going to do anything, right? Nothing changes over here. But what I can do is I can style these divs differently. Okay, I'm going to go to my CSS and I can style the team name section to take up the span of 3. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here because I want the team name section that is inside the .team page to be styled this way. Okay, that was the whole reason behind using the, Sas. So you can do this. How do I tell it to span multiple? Okay, the way to do that is by saying grid column, and I want it to span 3. Okay, because it needs to take this one, and this one. Okay, that leaves, once I make it span 3, it's going to push everything down. Okay, it's going to reflow. So wins loss is going to go over here, and then the next div is going to go over to the next line. Okay, so I'm going to hit save. Can you see this? It pushed everything to the side, and this one's going to go over here. Okay, now this is perfect, right? This is going to take the first 3 cells. This is going to take the 4th cell, so this completes the first row. Now the second row, this one needs to be the full row, okay? So you can imagine what needs to be done for that. All right, I'm gonna go over to there, to the class. What did I call this? Is there a class name associated with this? Well, there isn't, so I'm gonna create a class name, okay? I'm gonna call this the class name, and I'm gonna call this match detail section. I can, of course, create a div and wrap the match detail card within it. That should be fine too, but either way you do it, I'm going to give it a class name. I'm going to call this match detail section. And now the match detail section needs to have a span of what? Needs to have a span of 4, because this one needs to span all the 4 columns. Okay, so I'm going to do a dot match detail section, and this is going to have a grid column span 4. Okay, again, notice what happens. This is going to span the whole thing, and it is going to push this, the first div after, to the next row, right? I'm going to hit save. well, that didn't quite do it. Let's see what's going on. Let me actually create a div for this because I feel like it's not assigning the class name. Let's check this out. With developer tools. Let's take a look at this div. Okay. So it's taken this class, but it hasn't assigned the class name that we have given. It's probably because the first class in this thing already has a class name. Okay, that makes sense. So this is not going to work. What I'm going to do is take this and put a wrapper div around it so I can enforce a class name. Okay, basically the class name isn't taking, right? If you look at the card, the class name isn't taking. So I'm going to cut and put, oh, here is a div. I already created a div. So I'm going to just put the class name. There's match detail section. Okay, and save. And now it's done what I wanted it to do. It's basically spanned the whole row. There isn't content here, so you can't see it. But then the next 3 cards have gone below. You see this? This card has gone below. All right. Now I'm going to add a more link over here because we need a link for the next one. I'm going to create a div here. And I don't know. We don't have a class name to give it for now. I'm just going to leave it as is. And I'm going to have an anchor tag, href equals, just going to make it hash for now. And then I'm going to have a link which says more, save. So I have the more link over here. And now the third row has 4 elements which correspond to the 4 columns. Okay, so we have this in place. I'm going to indent this so that this reads well. So this one's going to be indented here. These ones are individual divs, which is fine. And this one is going to be the other div. So these 2 are the first row. This is a second row because it has a span of 4. This one, these are the third row because I'm basically printing 3. And then there is a more. If there is more here, like if I were to add another team, then this is going to push to the bottom and it's going to go to the next row, which is fine. At this point, I don't anticipate changing that. So this kind of fits neatly with just those spans. This is fitting quite well. All right, so now we have this in place. Now let's position the elements over here, right? This one, I think it makes sense for it to be at the bottom and then not at the top. So this is the div and it's taken up this whole space, but this is at the top. I want it to be at the bottom so that it looks good. So I am going to go to the team page.scss and the team name section. I'm going to justify, all right? So I'm going to say justify self, and I'm going to make this start. Notice what this is going to do. I'm going to go over here. If I save, it moves this to the left, which I think it's already doing right now. So it shouldn't matter much, but it's basically justifying to the beginning of the div. But now the key is align needs to go to the end. Align is basically the vertical align. Okay, and the vertically it has to be at the bottom, which is align end, and the property for that is align self, which is going to be end, and now it's going to put it to the bottom. And see this? That's what we want. So basically, justify and align are the ways in which you position the element of the grid. Justify self, you can make it start from the left. Justify self can be end so that it starts from the end, or you can make it center so that it's center aligned. Align self is the vertical alignment. Again, you can have start, center, and end. I want it to be at the end because I want it to stick to the bottom over here. This makes it look a little better. All right, so that's this part. Now the match detail section, I am going to, let's see, how do I do this? I guess this is fine for now. I'm gonna get the latest matches and put it into the section over here. It shouldn't be in the match detail card, all right? So I'm gonna take this one out. It shouldn't be in the match detail card. Instead, I'm gonna put this in the team page, all right? In the match detail section, I'm gonna put, this is the latest matches, and then the match detail card goes over here. Okay, awesome. Next, the team name, let me bump up the size of the team name, okay? So I'm gonna go over here, team name section. I'm gonna call this class name equals team name. Okay, now I can target that header and increase the size of that thing. I'm going to put this below the team name section. I can of course also put it within the team name section so that it's inside that, and it adds an extra qualifier. It's basically, I'm going to be styling the team name class, which exists within the team name section class, which exists within team page. Can do that, but I don't think I need it right now. All right, let's do font size, I don't know, 10 rem. This is probably going to be too big. We'll see. Whoa, that's too big. All right, so let's make it 7 rem, 5 rem. Yeah, this is probably too big anyway. Let's see. Yeah, maybe not. We'll see. Maybe 4 rem. Okay, that's better. We will leave it at that. And then let's see. I need a win-loss section over here. Let me actually make that at least center aligned, and we can add the pie chart later. Right? Win-loss section needs to be center aligned. This is after team name. I'm going to say dot win-loss section. I'm going to say justify self center. Okay, so it is centered in a way. All right, next, let's move on to this card. Okay, the match detail card. And again, the match detail card doesn't have a CSS, so I'm going to add that here. Right, I'm going to create a new file called match detail card.scss, and I'm going to import that in my component. So I get that styling. All right. What happened? I need to do a dot slash. Okay. All right. So match detail card has the class match detail card as a div around surrounding it. So I'm again going to be using that as the top level selector. Everything that I style over here is going to be within that thing. So I can kind of focus on what I want this to be. All right. So here, let's see, what do I want to do? Maybe I'm going to make versus a little small, and then this one's probably the right size. Maybe I can tweak this. Okay, let's see what I can do here. So I'm going to make this as a span here. And then class name equals versus. Okay. And inside this span, I'm just going to have versus, okay? And then there's going to be h1. I save this. I'm going to have it look like this, all right? That's cool. And next, I'm going to style these individual elements over here, right? So let's see, what do I have? I have the heading, which is the team name. I think it's in a decent size. I think I'm happy with the size. I'm not going to change that. Let's see. I can add class name here. I'm going to call this match date. And then this one is going to be match venue. And then this one's going to be match result. All right, I've defined 3 classes. Now I can style them over here. Okay, what do I want this to be? Maybe add some spacing over here would be a good first step, right? So I'm going to do, for all 3 of them, right? I need some spacing between all of them, okay? So I'm going to do the match detail, what did I call it? Match date, match venue, and match result for all 3 of them. Match date, match venue, and then match result all three of them, I'm going to add a little bit of a margin at the top, right? I'm going to say margin top. Let's add 5 pixels, see how it looks. Yeah, not bad. Make it 10 pixels. This is good. This is better. Okay. Okay, so this is fine. One thing I was thinking of was to kind of change the look of this thing and make it be like a dark background. I feel like for something like a sports kind of a page, a dark background and light text would work better. Let me give that a try and see how it looks, okay? How do I make the whole thing dark background? For that, I'm not going to go into a component. I'm going to go to index.css. I'm going to put the background color. I'm going to copy paste the default color that React apps come with. Okay, so this is the color that a typical React app comes with when you start it, right? And came with a dark background. I'm just going to copy that because I feel like that would be a good fit for this thing. All right, this guy. Okay. Okay, this is better. Not fully black, but it's kind of like a grayish black thing. I think that's fine. I'm going to put the color as white. Okay, so this is good. I'm going to have to change the color of the links as well. Okay, so I'm going to make anchor color also to be white. Okay, that is better. Or maybe light gray is that what it is? Light gray. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So now I have the links to be of a different color, but at least it's still white, so that stands out a bit. Okay, the other thing I want to do is kind of set the. Right now it's kind of taking up the whole space. You see this? It's taking up the whole space, and I don't want that. I want it to be like a certain size, maybe like 1200 pixels, and then have it be centered. Okay, so maybe 1100 or 1200 pixels. Let me do that. I'm going to set the body max width to be 1100 pixels. Max dash width. Okay, so it's too much over here, so I'm going to make it centered. The way to make something centered, especially if it has a fixed width, is to do margin auto. Okay, so the left and right needs to be auto, in which case it's going to automatically center on the left. Okay, so I'm going to make the top and bottom margin as 0 because I don't want a margin there, and then left and right is going to be auto, so it is going to be centered. Okay. Okay, this is good. Why is it? Oh, I made it too small. Okay, 1100 pixels. Okay, this is better. Let me make it 1200. Okay, this is better. Now, even if I were to increase this, the size is going to remain the same. Okay, this is not responsive in the true sense of the term because I guess it is responsive now, but I'm not going to be focusing on making it responsive. We will see how that goes, okay? For now, this should do. It has a nice kind of like a layout for it. Okay, moving back to my match detail card. Okay, what can I do over here? Let me try adding some more UI elements over here, okay? So I'm gonna go to the match detail card.js over here. I'm going to add a few more things. We have a lot of other stuff that we have got, but we haven't used in our match detail card. Okay, so I'm going to add them all over here. For example, we know who the first innings is, who the second innings is, and all that. All right, let me add all that stuff over here. Okay, so I'm going to say H1, maybe H3. I'm using H3 over here, so I'm just going to continue using H3. First innings, and then paragraph, is going to be match dot first innings. Okay, and then no, match dot team 1, because remember we have put team 1 to be the team who plays the first innings, and the team 2 is the team who plays the second innings. So I'm going to do second innings is going to be match dot team 2. Okay, and then let me do a couple more over here. Actually, let me see how this looks like. Save. Yeah, this looks bad. This looks bad. I'm gonna try moving this over here, maybe to the right. I can do that by making this a grid, right? It's easy to align things in CSS these days. I just have to make it a grid. All right, let me make this display as a grid. So it's basically a grid within a grid, and then grid template columns is going to be 2, all right? So 1FR, 1FR. Okay, now it's going to basically put all the divs and split it over here, which is not what I want. So I'm going to group them as 2 divs so that the first content is going to come into this one, the second div is going to come into the right. So I have, what do I have here? Maybe put all this stuff inside one div. Okay, and then all of the other stuff is inside another div. Okay, so the initial stuff that I have versus, you know, date, venue, and result is going to be inside one div. And then I'm going to have one more div here, which is going to be the additional details, right? All those additional details are going to go over here. I'm going to call this class name equals maybe innings or additional detail. Okay. And over here in my CSS, just by adding 2 divs, it's going to split it evenly, right? So the first div is going to go over here and the second div is going to go over here, which is what we want, okay? Now here I'm going to do dot additional details. Was it details or detail? Let's see, detail. So I don't have plural here. Okay, here I'm going to, I don't know, make it text align to be right so that it's more towards the side like this, and then add some spacing over here. Yeah, I don't want to add class names. I'm too lazy for that. I'm just going to make every paragraph have like a margin. Okay, so I'm going to do ampersand, which is basically additional detail, and then the paragraph below additional detail is going to have a margin bottom of 10 pixels. We can make it a little bit more, 20 pixels. Okay, this is better. And now I can add a couple more things over here, right? So we added the first innings, second innings. Let me add a couple more stuff. Okay, I'm gonna add who won the toss. And what else do we have? Let's see. Match.java. We have the man of the match and the umpires. Okay. I'm going to add man of the match is going to be match dot. I think it was called player of match. Okay, match dot player of match. And then I'm going to say umpires. Match dot umpire 1, then a comma, and then match dot umpire 2. Save. I'm going to get all that information over here. Okay, this is cool. Now this is very much compacted together, so I'm going to add maybe some padding over here and some margin over here so that it kind of spaces up a little bit. So match detail card, which is this div here, I'm going to add a padding of maybe 10 pixels. Okay, and maybe a margin. Let me put a margin over here. Just gonna put a margin at the bottom and then set the margin of this top thing to push this down, perhaps. Let's see. Margin bottom. Gonna make this 20 pixels. Okay, so this has some space over here. Now I need to add a space at the top. I'm going to do that by going to the team page and maybe adding a margin over here. Maybe 20 pixels. Okay, so this is a little bit better. So now I have basically this whole thing being a full row tile. Okay. Okay. I think it's a little bit too wide for my taste. Let me actually reduce it a little bit. I don't know if it's happening that way because I've zoomed it in. Yeah, it's the zoom in that's causing that problem. I think with this way, I think this is about the right size. I was doing the zoom, so that was kind of like blowing up everything. I should reset the zoom at least when I'm styling. I know this looks a little small in your screen, perhaps, especially if you're looking at it on like a phone, but you gotta bear with me. This otherwise is messing with my head. 20 pixels looked more than 20 pixels to me when I did that. All right, so now I have this guy here, and this is its own tile. And let me actually reduce the overall size by a little bit more. So there's going to be index.css. I'm going to make this 1100 pixels so that it's a little bit more kind of compacted together. Okay, now what I want to do is maybe color this thing differently, right? So what I want to do is, again, I'm thinking I might change my mind about this. Have the tile be green if the team in concern, like whatever team I'm seeing this for, if that team has won, make that as green. If that team has lost, make it as red. Okay, so in this particular case, I'm on the Sunrisers Hyderabad page, and I'm seeing this match versus Delhi Capitals, and in this case, Delhi Capitals won. So this thing will be red. And in this case, versus Royal Challengers Bangalore, Sunrisers Hyderabad won. So in this case, this will be green. Okay, so basically changing the background color based on whether the team won or lost. Let's see how I would do that. Okay, I'm going to go to my component. First, I need to figure that out in the JavaScript, right? I need to figure out if the team has won or lost. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to create like a Boolean variable, which indicates whether the team won or lost. Okay, so I'm going to say const is match one, right? Because I'm doing this for a match detail card. It's one particular match. It's basically going to be, team.match winner, right? So if team is equal to team.match winner. Okay, and now I can, what happened? Team is not defined. All right, it's match.match winner. Refresh. Okay, I might have to restart this thing, perhaps. Team is not defined. All right, Steam name. Should check my syntax before restarting the server. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna go to this page again and refresh. Okay, so this is fine still. Now I have a Boolean which indicates that whether this particular match has been won by this team or not. Now what I need to do is set a class for me to color it, right? I can have two classes. I'm going to say like a won and a lost, and then have this be assigned to one of those classes. Okay, so the way I do that is by, let me get rid of this thing. The way I do that is by using an expression over here, and I'm going to say is match one. Okay, if the match is won, then I'm going to have the class be a won card, and if the match is lost, I'm going to have the class be a lost card. Okay, so I'm going to create these classes and then set them here so that I can style them with like a green or a red, depending on whether the won card class or the lost card class is assigned to this particular div. And of course, I need the match detail card class as well. So that needs to apply either way. Okay, so I have to create styling for this thing. I'm going to go to my match detail card over here, and I'm going to create the one card styling to be, I'm going to call background color. There's going to be green. Of course, this is going to look horrible. I'm going to choose the right green and then a little bit. I'm going to do a lost card, and the background color is going to be red. Okay. This looks horrible. Let me go to Delhi Capitals. Somebody who has won? Yeah. So this is green. It looks, at least it's tiled well, but it looks disgusting. So what I'm going to do is go to CSS codes online. There is a way in which you can look up CSS, not this one, color codes. HTML CSS color online. There is a way in which you can pick this thing. HTML, no, I'm not going to W3 schools. Let's see, HTML color codes. Okay, let's take a look at this. All right, so for red, I'm going to choose something like something over here. I am going to try a couple of colors, and I'm going to maybe pause this because I don't want you seeing me pick colors like this, because that can be its own 10-hour video. Yeah, it's not quite right. Maybe this works. I'm gonna pick green, which is gonna be this guy, and then let's see. Yeah, this one's too light. So what I'm going to do is pause the video, do a couple more color picks, and then I'm going to unpause when I have found something which I think is decent enough. Okay, so I have found two color codes. All right, so this green and this red, which I think looks decent. So I'm just going to move on, okay? This seems to be fine, so I'm just going to use this and move on. Now, this particular thing, since I want it done for both the detail card and the individual cards, I'm thinking I should probably move this somewhere else, right? It's not specific to the match detail card, right? This can be applied to the match small card as well. So I'm going to move this to maybe app.css, okay? Because this needs to apply across the board. I can imagine another card that I create later which might also need this. So I'm moving this to app.css, and it's still going to work because it is applied across the board, but at least it's in a common shared place. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the match small card as well. Okay. I'm going to go to the match small card component, and I'm going to paste this here. So I'm going to decide whether the team has won the match that this card is showing or not. And then the CSS is going to be this guy. And then instead of match detail card, it's going to be match small card. And now I should have coloring for these guys as well. Yeah, this looks bad, but we can change it. Now you can see all these things changing colors. Awesome. Okay, now let's style the match small card. This is not looking right. All right, we gotta fix this. I am going to do something similar over here, which is to take the versus and move it to the top, and whatever I did here, right? So I put a div over here, which is the versus and the team name. I'm going to do the exact same thing over here, the match small card. Okay, this one is going to be with the versus a little bit smaller and having its own line, and then this thing is going to be over here. Okay. And if I go to the CSS, I don't have a CSS. Let me create that then. Create match small card.css, and I'm going to import that in my component. .css. Okay, so over here, I want to do something similar to what I did over here, right? I'm going to add some padding and then add some spacing between these things. Okay, so I can actually copy this stuff over here, right? I'm going to copy this thing. Of course, I don't need a grid, so I'm not going to get that. But I think the other stuff will still apply. Match small card. There is possibly a potential for reuse over here. I can maybe extract the card thing as its own class, but it's fine. I think that's fine for now. Okay, so I am going to have, this one's just this match result. We don't have anything else there. And I'm going to add the match result class over here. Class name equals match result. Okay. And now this looks okay. Not too bad, not too bad. All right. So I can expand this. Now we have 3 of these cards for each team. And we have a more link that doesn't go anywhere, which is fine. We'll make it go somewhere later. And yeah, we have something which is fairly decent, right? Fairly decent. Now I'm going to make this more somewhere in the middle over here. So let's fix that. So the match detail card, well, where is the more link? I think it is in the match, the team page.js. Okay, so I'm going to create a class for the more link here. Class name equals, I'm going to call this more link. And then this is going to go to, let's go to the CSS here. I'm going to make this align self to be center. You know the drill now. Align self, makes it align in the vertically, and then justify self center makes it center over here. All right. Now I am going to add this arrow so that we know that it's a clickable thing. Maybe I increase the font size a bit. This seems a little too small. I'm going to say font size, make it 1.5 rem. Okay, that's better. Now my more link is going to have this arrow thing over here so that people know to click on it. It's like you can go somewhere using this more link, right? Doesn't go anywhere right now, but we'll add that. This has to go to the matches page. We will fix that in a bit. Okay, so now we have sort of styled the team page with one notable exception. We don't have the wins losses thing. Okay, so let's add this thing. I want this to be a pie chart. So let me see if there is a component for React which holds the pie chart. Okay, so I'm going to do a search for React pie chart component. Let's take a look at this. Minimal pie chart, which is what I want. This seems decent enough. Okay, I'm going to go to the repo. All right, so I can use this thing for showing the pie chart over here, right? I wanted to have like a wins versus losses pie chart. So I'm just going to try this component. Okay, so let me install this thing. Kill this guy and install React minimal pie chart. We'll see how this does. Okay, it's installed. I'm just going to copy the usage of this thing. And it's not ideal, but I'm going to stick it into the team page. Ideally, what we should be doing is creating its own component for the wins versus losses. But I'm just doing it for now. Maybe you can send me a PR with this separated out into its own component. All right, inside the wins versus losses section, I'm going to stick this pie chart example that they've given. Okay. And we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's take a look. I haven't run the application, so let me start this. Refresh. Okay, this is not bad. This is not bad. I get a pie chart, so this is cool. So now what I'm going to do is, it resizes as well. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to change this to maybe wins, and then value, you can leave the value there, and then losses, we need only 2, right? Does it work? Yeah, I get 2. Okay, so what are the wins? The wins is basically, let me look at match.java. Wins are, no, it's team.java, right? I'm gonna go to team.java. Total matches and total wins. So this is easy. So the wins are gonna be total wins. Team.total wins. And then the losses are gonna be team.total matches minus team.total wins. This should do it. And okay. It doesn't seem to be changing. Interesting. Okay. Why is it not changing? Okay, I think I have a syntax error here. Teampage.js. Yeah, it is subtraction, not equals. That's, I think, what was doing it. Yeah, now this seems much better. Okay, and it's not all equal now, and it keeps changing every time. Cool, so now we have a pie chart. I'm going to change the color, and I prefer to have the same color for whatever we have picked for the green and the red over here. So I'm just going to copy over that color. I'm going to go to app.scss. So the one is going to be this guy. So this is going to be the wins. And then this is going to be the losses. Okay, all right. I don't know why it's putting the losses at the top. I'd like the green to be at the top and the red to be at the bottom. Let's see. Maybe I can just move this up here. Will that work? Yeah, that works. All right, this will do. Okay, one thing I'm going to do before we wrap this up is maybe squeeze this in a little bit so that it's not that far apart. Now this wins and losses seems to be floating in its own space. I'm going to go over here to the team page.scss. I'm going to add a padding, maybe around 30 pixels, and text align, center, I need a semicolon here. Text align center. There seems to be a semicolon over here, which I need to fix. I'll go over here to team page. It's probably one from the copy paste that we did. Doesn't seem like it. Where's the semicolon coming from? This is the pie chart. And here it ends. Okay, that was it. Okay, this one doesn't seem to be still aligned. So let me see what's going on over here. You see this wins losses? Okay, that seems to be aligned. If you look at it this way, it seems to be aligned. So I don't know what I was looking at. I think it looks fine. Doesn't it look fine? I think it looks fine. Maybe increase the padding a little bit more to make it a little more compact. So I'm going to go to teampage.scss and make the padding maybe 40. Okay, this is better. All right, so now I have the team name, the wins versus losses ratio of these teams, and then I have these cards. So I kind of have the team page in a good shape. Okay, so this is kind of what I want. I'm not going to spend way too much time tweaking this because, again, this is going to take a long time. I can keep tweaking this to my heart's content, but this is, I think, decent enough. I'm happy leaving it as is. So I'm going to commit this and say styling off the team page, and now we're going to move on to the matches page. Okay, so with the matches page, excuse me, with the matches page, we not only need to do styling, we also need to have add a couple of UI elements, okay? We need to add the year selection, which probably needs some code changes. So let me actually save these changes first. I'm gonna say styled the theme page. So if you want to follow along, you can use this checkpoint, and I've committed it. And now I'm going to move on to the match page next.